These are fudge-filled chocolate thumbprints. They're one of the most time-consuming cookies we make, and they have the most steps. But none of the steps are particularly complicated, and the results are certainly worth the effort. Whether you choose to string them with white chocolate at the end, or just have them plain with the nuts in them, they're a very fancy looking cookie. Our recipe makes between 4 and 4.5 dozen cookies. Total preparation and baking time is about 3 hours, but it's well worth the effort when you see the look on somebody's face when they bite into it. The first step for our chocolate thumbprints is to take 1.5 cups of walnut halves and use our grinder to chop them into fine pieces. And it'll take 2 steps to do that. And I'm going to do the other half and then we'll take a look at them. And here are our ground walnuts. And this is a pretty fine grind, but the particle size can almost be to your taste. What we're going to do is we're not going to incorporate this into a dough. We're actually going to roll a ball of dough in the nuts so that they just coat the outside. So if you've got an occasional larger piece here, that's okay. It's not going to shut you down. It's not like we're going to incorporate it into the dough and try and squeeze it through a press or a pastry bag. We have 6 tablespoons of European style Dutch processed cocoa and 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And we're going to mix those together to get a real thick chocolate paste that we're going to incorporate into our cookie dough. You want to make sure you get all the dry cocoa picked up in that oil mixture. And there we go. You can see that is a big, thick, gooey bunch of stuff. Here are the ingredients for our dough, and the first step is to take 1/2 teaspoon of salt and mix it into 2 cups of flour so that when we're ready to add this to the dough, it's already blended. And now we're ready to mix our dough. To make our dough, we're going to use 2 sticks, which is 1 cup of unsalted margarine, a cup of granulated sugar, and we're going to cream those together. nice and fluffy. So now we'll scrape down the bowl. Next, we're going to add 2 egg yolks, and we're going to blend those in and save the whites. We'll be using them later. Again, that's nice and light and fluffy. So we'll scrape the bowl. To this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla and the mixture we made from the cocoa and the oil. And that's gooey stuff, and there's no pretty way to do it. Gotta make sure you get every bit of that. And then we're going to blend that in. And now we've got a nice fluffy chocolate dough. So we scrape the bowl. And finally, with the mixer running, we're going to add our flour salt mixture. And there we have a nice, soft chocolate dough. Have a damp towel standing by. You're going to need it to clean your hands periodically. This is 2 egg whites in 1/8 cup of water, and we'll just whip those up a little bit so that the water and the egg whites are blended. We've taken the time here to actually measure with a teaspoon full of dough and rolled it into a ball, which gives us about a 1-inch ball. Now we're not going to measure every cookie, but what this does is it gives us a target as we're pinching the dough off and just rolling it between our palms into a ball. Then we can compare it to our teaspoon sized dough, and if that looks about right, we can take it to the next step. If it's not big enough, we can add a little dough. If it's too much, we can pinch it off and roll it again. So we're going to take this ball of dough, we're going to dunk it all the way around in our egg white and water mixture, and then we're going to roll it in the crushed walnuts. And we'll take that and set it aside on a plate. And we're just going to keep doing that. And that's why you need that towel, because you're going to get chocolate and egg whites all over your fingers. Again, you want a dough ball that's about an inch. Just drench it in the egg white and roll it in the nuts. And you can do some in bunches like this, but I wouldn't recommend doing more than about a dozen because the dough will start to dry out and crust over. And you want to make sure that that's pretty thoroughly coated. And there's no other way to do this. This is a pretty sloppy process, but the results are worth the effort. We finished rolling our dough in walnuts, and now we're going to put them on a lightly greased cookie sheet. So we want to leave about 2 inches between the cookies because they're going to expand when we bake them. Adjust these a little bit. And these are a thumbprint cookie. You can use a teaspoon or a melon baller or any kind of kitchen tool. I use my thumb. And we're going to lightly press a well into each of these cookies. And you don't want to take your thumb and smash it down. You just want to do it very gently, because all we're doing is we're making an indentation to hold the filling we're going to put in when they're done baking. Yes, there's another step. And that's that. These are ready to go into a preheated 350 degree oven. They bake for 8 to 10 minutes, and we rotate the sheet halfway through the baking cycle. We're going to bake these until they're just set. They're going to be soft when we take them out of the oven. We take them off the cookie sheet immediately and let them finish baking as they cool on the cooling rack. Just out of the oven. As you can see, they've puffed up, so we're going to use a little spoon. It'd be a teaspoon, a measuring spoon, this is a baby spoon, and kind of just lay it on that dent to help it take its shape. And you're not smashing these down, because if you do, they're soft and the cookies will break and they'll be ruined. So you just kind of lay it in there and let it reinforce the dent. And as you can see, they're still soft, and that's okay. We're going to take them off the cookie sheet and let them finish baking on the cooling rack. And now we're ready to make the chocolate fudge filling that we're going to spoon into the center of our cookie. This is as close to a double boiler as I have, which is a stainless steel bowl sitting over a pan of hot water. In the bowl we have a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, and we're going to add an 11.5-ounce package of milk chocolate chips. And now we're going to stir those up until they're melted. And that's going to take a few minutes. You've got to be careful when you're doing this, because this top bowl picks up the heat, and at the same time you have to stir it constantly, because you want to make sure that your chocolate doesn't start to burn. Once it's started to burn, it's done. You can't recover it. So you just got to be patient, keep stirring until you've got a nice smooth consistency. And now that it's pretty much melted, we're going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and we're going to keep stirring. And that's about as thin as that's going to get. Take a teaspoon, ladle a little bit of it out, and put a dollop of it in the center of our cookie. Just like that. And you're probably expecting me now to say, and if you don't have any patience, put it in a pastry bag, like we've done on some of the other cookies. But you really can't do that with this, because if you take the chocolate off the heat, it will immediately begin to set up. And before you're done with the cookies, you'll have chocolate fudge that's ready to eat, not ready to put in a cookie. One of the reasons that we use this fudge the way we do is because it will stay soft after the cookies are frozen. Otherwise, you could just melt chocolate chips and ladle them in there, and you'd have a nice chocolate center. But if you're going to freeze the cookies, which we do all of them, then once that chocolate freezes, it's hard as a rock when you take it out of the freezer and let it thaw. Whereas this fudge will soften back up and it'll be excellent. And there's a couple ways to finish these. One would be to just put a little piece of walnut on the top and call it a day. And if you're tired of making these by now, that may be what you want to do. I'm going to finish filling them and show you one more step. You're probably wondering if we're ever going to finish with these cookies. After about a half hour, the chocolate in the center skins over. And we've got some that we've garnished just with walnuts, and they look pretty good just plain. But if you want to make them look like $1,000,000, in our double boiler here, we've melted 4 ounces of white chocolate. We're just going to take a fork and just dribble it over these and string them like a piece of candy. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, nothing, no design, no pattern, it's just random. And as always when we're doing this kind of operation, underneath the racks we've put wax paper so that the cleanup's easier when we're all finished. And this makes these cookies look like $1,000,000. And 4 ounces is just about enough because you don't want to overdo the white chocolate. It certainly adds another layer of flavor to these, and that's all well and good, but it's really there just for the look. about the last of it, and we'll just kind of fling it. And how much would you pay for one of those in a bakery? And there you have our fudge-filled chocolate thumbprints. And after you've put the white chocolate on them, or if you don't put the white chocolate on them, it takes about an hour or an hour and a half for all the chocolate in the center to finish setting up.